Hello, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Daniel Sosa, and I work for a company called Samaritas. Samaritas is a company that's one of the largest health and human service nonprofits in the state, and we get our name from two words: Samaritan, which comes from the story of the Good Samaritan in the Bible, and tas, which in Latin means state of living. So the name of the company means living your life as a Good Samaritan. Today we're going to talk about one of the programs that Samaritas offers. We like to call our program presentation Samaritalks. And some of you actually may know us by our former name, Lutheran Social Services of Michigan. The name was changed in 2016 so that people didn't think that they had to be a Lutheran to maybe work for us or work with us. So we're one of the largest nonprofits in the state of Michigan. The latest numbers we have is the fourth largest, and we do quite a number of different programs: refugee resettlement, substance use disorder programming, foster care, adoption. And so one of the programs, and the program that I work in, is called Refugee Foster Care. It's one of only two programs in the state of Michigan, and only about 30 in the entire country, where you, if you're so inclined, could have a foster youth who is a refugee from another country. So to start off today, we're going to talk about what exactly a refugee is. I know that during these times we hear that word used quite a bit, so let's define it. So the United Nations has a division called the High Commissioner for Refugees. Every year they put out a report called the Global Trends Report. At the end of 2022, which is the latest information that I have, there was a record number, 108.4 million people who were displaced from their homes at the end of 2022. That's an increase over 2021 by about 19 million. So you may wonder why that number increased so greatly. Well, if you watch the worldwide news, you see a number of different things going on. But in that year, you had quite a few folks who were refugees from Ukraine. Of that global total, 35.3 million are considered refugees, while 58.5 million were internally displaced within their home country. So as you can see, a refugee is somebody who is displaced from their home, but still within their own home country. Or, I'm sorry, outside of their home country. The United States is actually the only country in the world that has a national program dedicated to serving two populations of refugee youth. Those terms that we use for those populations are unaccompanied refugee minors and unaccompanied children. We've worked with unaccompanied refugee minors in Michigan since the 1970s. We serve about 100 youth every year. So to start off with, we're going to talk a little bit about what the difference is between an unaccompanied refugee minor and an unaccompanied child. They may sound like the exact same thing, but there are some differences. So unaccompanied refugee minor programs serve youth by finding them a safe place to live: a foster home, a host home. A host home is a home that takes in a youth after they turn 18. We also operate group homes in Jackson and Grand Rapids. And whenever possible, we also work to reunite them with families they may have in the United States. The programs provide for these youth case management and immigration support, therapy, independent living preparation, cultural mentors, tutors, whatever services they may need to be a successful refugee in this country. Samaritas has served unaccompanied refugee minors again since the 1970s. So we serve over 100 youth every year in that program. Unaccompanied child, that's a different term that the federal government uses. Unaccompanied child programs serve these youth by finding them a safe place to live, a foster home, a host home, group home, or whenever possible, reunite them with their families. So you see, many of these items that we're talking about are very similar to the unaccompanied refugee program. We also provide case management, immigration support, therapy, independent living preparation, cultural mentors, tutors, etc. Unaccompanied children are working towards transferring to the unaccompanied refugee minor program. So the best way I can put it is an unaccompanied child is striving to become an unaccompanied refugee minor. An unaccompanied refugee minor is a preferred status. They qualify for state services, whereas an unaccompanied child will only qualify for federal services. Also, an unaccompanied refugee minor will be on a quicker path to becoming a citizen. Once they turn 18, they'll be able to apply for a green card. Once you have a green card, you have to wait 5 years, and then you can become a U.S. citizen, assuming there's no problems. We've served, again, unaccompanied refugee minors since the 70s, and we serve about 100 youth every year. So where do these youth come from, and why do they come from? To understand why youth come here, you just have to watch the world news. Oftentimes, if we don't seek out and find worldwide news, we really don't know what's going on in other countries. If we watch the local news, they're great at covering usually local stories. I'll give you an example. In our last presidential election, those always happen in November, there was actually 2 hurricanes that hit in the area of Honduras. We didn't see much coverage about that in the local news because we had the election going on at that time. But things like that, civil wars, conflicts, those are what drive youth to come to this country. All of the youth that we work with come to the country unaccompanied. So that means by themselves. Almost all of them without adults. If they do come with an adult, it's an adult who helped them maybe get here, but it's not an adult that they're able to stay with. So some of the countries that we've had youth come from, you see highlighted here on this map. Currently, the countries that we're seeing the most youth come from are Ghana, Afghanistan, Honduras, and Guatemala. In the past, we've seen youth come from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Eritrea, which is a very small country in Africa, and these youth make this trek by themselves to this country. The travels that they make are very, very treacherous. There's a lot of risks, there's a lot of pitfalls on the way to coming to the U.S. by yourself. We see many of these youth who have been victims of human trafficking. They're fleeing gang violence. All types of situations can arise which would cause a youth to leave their home country. So where are they coming from? How do they get here? These youth cross our border and then they're detained by the Border Patrol or the Department of Homeland Security. If they choose to try to come into the country as a refugee or as an asylee, they are referred to a federal office called the Office of Refugee Resettlement. It is the Office of Refugee Resettlement that Samaritas directly contracts with to place youth into foster homes in the state of Michigan. Foster home is something that is done on a state-to-state basis, so Samaritas does only operate in the state of Michigan. Our office is located in Lansing, Michigan, so we are also restricted to working within a 2-hour radius of Lansing. So if you're in the Great Lakes Bay region, you are eligible to become a foster parent, and we will talk a little bit more about that process. So a few statistics about our program. About 85% of the youth do fall into this older end of the spectrum, 17 to 20. That's because when they enter our programs, they do have to be younger than 18. But if they are entering our program before they turn 18, they can stay up until the age of 21, which almost all of them elect to do. They stay in our programs and can receive services up until the age of 21. About 75% are males. The reason that more males come than females are for the same reasons that make the journey here so treacherous. Human trafficking and all of the pitfalls that these young people can fall into. The journey is much more dangerous for a female versus a male. And the same when it comes to age. It's much easier for an older teen to come to the U.S. than it is for a younger child. And obviously a toddler or an infant can't come to another country on their own. About 75% of our youth come to our program when they are 16 to 17 years old. So these youth, although they're in foster care, are at the older end of the foster care spectrum, which in some cases, that's ideal for people who don't want to necessarily foster an infant or a toddler. Teenagers are, to a large degree, self-sufficient. So we like to think of these young people as being on a new journey. They're learning a new language, they're navigating a new culture, they're attending high school, finding an after-school job maybe, but they're also dealing with things like immigration court, applying for a green card, and they're doing all these things while being a teenager. So as the saying goes, we like to build a village around these young people. The village can be a foster family who take in the youth. a host family who rent a room to the youth after they turn 18. We pair them with mentors who are oftentimes of the same culture and background as the youth whenever possible. We hire tutors to help them catch up in school. While on that journey to the U.S., many of these youth do fall behind in school, and the tutors help them get back on track. On our staff, we have case managers, therapists. We also have independent living coaches. The independent living coaches work with the young person to help them learn how to live independently. As you can imagine, when you come to this country and you're already, say, 16 years of age, it doesn't really give you a lot of time to acclimate to American society. So the independent living coaches work with the young person as soon as they turn 16, and they teach them how to learn to live independently. Things such as using public transportation, making your own doctor's appointments, and those sorts of things. The number one thing we do try to do outside of these things is to connect the youth to the communities that they live in. So a few more statistics about our programs. About 2/3 of our current homes don't speak another language. That's a question that we often get, is do I need to speak another language or that young person's language? All of the youth coming here are attempting to or are deep into working to learn English. Young people, I like to think of them as sponges. They're very great at learning new languages. But in case you don't speak the same language as a young person, and there is a language barrier, there are some great applications on your phone that'll help you translate. There's even technology that we're using now where they're like headphones. You can stick one of the headphones into your ear and the other headphone into the other person's ear, and they will actually translate in real time to each other's language. So you'll hear them in a language you speak, and they'll hear you in a language they speak. We also have picture books at our office that have pictures of multiple different household items that the youth can use and the home can use to identify certain things in multiple language that are everyday household items. As far as fostering youth, you don't need to own your own home. You don't need to be married. There's no minimum income requirements, and you don't have to have previously raised a child to be a successful foster parent. Another program or another part of our program that we offer is our rent-a-room program. So many people who begin the licensing process realize maybe their home won't qualify, or they might opt to become a host family in our rent-a-room program. These homes rent a room to a youth transitioning out of foster care and serve as a live-in mentor to help them learn independent living skills. So if you decide to become a foster parent, what we'll do is you'll go through the application process. You'll fill out an application that will go to the state of Michigan for you to become a foster parent. That's half of the process. The other half of the process is licensing your home. So one of our licensing workers will work with you from beginning to end of this process to help you become licensed. And they'll actually go into your home and do what's called a home study. And during the home study, they'll help you identify any issues that might be deemed unsafe in terms of licensing your homes. That could be the temperature on your water heater, the number of exits you have in your house, or the number of fire detectors or carbon monoxide detectors. Those types of things that will work with you on that. A little bit more about our mentoring programs. Mentors can be a support to refugee youth outside of their foster families. Mentors spend a few hours with them monthly or weekly to help them as they adjust to a new culture, learn English, and develop independent living skills. Our tutors help youth get caught up in school by helping them with their homework and their English skills through 6 to 10 hours of face-to-face sessions each week. If necessary, those can also be conducted virtually. Tutors are a contract position, and they start at $14 an hour, and they're ideal jobs for youth in college. So we do operate a couple of group homes. Our group home in Jackson, Michigan, those are for youth who don't yet have a visa but are legally eligible and currently in the application process. The youth in this house attend Jackson High School. They play soccer for the Jackson High School soccer team, and they are a part of the Jackson community. In Grand Rapids, we have a shelter, and our Grand Rapids shelter temporarily houses older youth who have come to the United States to unite with a family member or a sponsor. While they're in that shelter, staff work dedicatedly to find their families and get them home as fast as possible. So in that Grand Rapids shelter, that is what's called transitional foster care. So the youth come into our program. Many of the shelters that you've probably seen on TV that have become infamous along the southern border, those youth are in what's called an ORR shelter, Office of Refugee Resettlement. So those youth in that shelter, once it's been determined that they have a family member that they can be relocated to or a sponsor, that means the youth can come to our Grand Rapids shelter, stay in that shelter 30 to 45 days while the paperwork part of reuniting them with a family member or a sponsor is being done. So in terms of jobs with Samaritas, if you'd like to come work for Samaritas, just go to samaritas.org, look under our job section, and you'll see quite a few open positions within our refugee program, as well as many other different parts of Samaritas. We always have a need for folks who are bilingual, so if you speak Spanish, that's a big plus. But we're hiring right now for staff to work in the Lansing and Ann Arbor areas in particular. So this is a graphic that I have here that'll show you some of the open positions that we have. We actually received a grant recently from the Office of Refugee Resettlement that'll allow us to increase the number of homes that we have in the state of Michigan by about 24. So we are looking for foster homes right now. There's a email that you saw, or a website that you saw on the previous slide that you can contact me through, and we can talk to you about that process. So, and basically what that process is you sit through a 1-hour orientation with me, and then you're able to apply to become a foster home, which we, again, our staff will help you through the entirety of that process. And there you have my email and our website. Please feel free to email me. Take a look at our website. We have plenty of information about those programs and a lot of the other programs that we offer at Samaritas. We also have a Facebook page that's Samaritas Refugee Youth Services. On Instagram, we're Samaritas RFC. You can look both those up and you can see some of the posts that we make about what's going on in our programs. There's plenty of videos that we also have on YouTube that will let you hear some of the youth and some of the families who have taken in the youth speak for themselves about our programs, about what we're able to accomplish with them. This is a quote I'd like to read you from one of our foster youth. This is a young man, is named Abdullah. He was a former foster youth. And the quote is, "I didn't know anybody here, but when I saw my mom, she was holding a sign that was saying, 'Welcome Abdullah, welcome to the United States,' in my own language. It surprised me and I felt like I wasn't going to be alone anymore." And that mom was his foster mom. Refugee youth are often made to feel pushed away and not wanted in their home countries. So this was a significant moment for him to be made to feel welcome, even though he was coming to a new place. And that's the end of my slides.